The clang of Jack's boots echoed through the deserted spacecraft yard as he navigated the cluttered terrain of the asteroid's surface. Giant metal carcasses of ships loomed like the skeletons of ancient beasts under the dim light of distant stars. Jack was here on a mission. His ship, the Orion, needed a new flux capacitor, and rumor had it that an old model, the XJ9, might just have what he needed. As he approached a familiar hull, the sight of his old ship, the Venturer, brought a rush of nostalgia. It had been years since he'd last set foot on it, and it now sat abandoned, or so he thought. Jack pulled out his toolkit, ready to salvage whatever he could find. Just as he was about to pry open the service panel, a noise from inside the ship stopped him. It was a faint, scrambling sound like someone, or something, was moving about hurriedly. "Hello? Is anyone there?" Jack called out, his voice muffled by the thick metal door. There was a brief silence, then a cautious yes. The voice was unmistakably feminine, albeit with a strange, melodic accent he couldn't place. Jack stepped back, surprised. "I'm sorry, I didn't realize this ship was occupied. I'm Jack. I used to pilot this ship. I'm just here to look for a part." The door cracked open, and a pair of wide, opalescent eyes peered out. The creature was clearly not human, her skin shimmering slightly under the light, her features delicate yet distinctly alien. "I'm Lyra," she said, her voice a whisper. "I've made a home here. I didn't expect anyone to return for this ship." Jack put down his tools, his curiosity piqued. "Well, Lyra, I promise I'm not here to kick you out. Maybe you can help me find the part one need? And you can tell me more about how you ended up here." The door opened wider, and Lyra stepped out. She was slender, her movements graceful and cautious as she approached him. "What part are you looking for?" "A flux capacitor. It's for the XJ9 model. The spare parts are stored under the lower deck panel." "I can show you," she interrupted, her initial apprehension fading into a sort of pragmatic helpfulness. Together, they walked through the familiar corridors of the Venturer. Jack couldn't help but notice how Lyra seemed to glide rather than walk, her feet barely making a sound against the metal floor. As they reached the lower deck, Lyra pointed to a panel. "It should be in there. I haven't moved it." Jack nodded and set to work, tools in hand. "So, Lyra, how did you find the Venturer? It's been docked here for ages." Lyra watched him work, her gaze thoughtful. "I was escaping a conflict on my home planet. I stowed away on a cargo ship and ended up here. This ship. It seemed safe, abandoned." Jack paused, looking at her with newfound respect. "Sounds like you've been through a lot. Well, you're welcome to stay on the ship as long as you need. Maybe once I fix my ship, we can figure out a better place for you." "Thank you, Jack," Lyra said, a smile touching her lips. "It's been a long time since anyone's offered to help." As Jack extracted the needed part from beneath the panel, he felt a sense of camaraderie with the alien girl. "Well, how about we fix my ship first, and then we see about getting you somewhere safe?" "That sounds like a plan," Lyra agreed, her eyes bright with a mix of relief and hope. Together they carried the heavy flux capacitor back to Jack's transport vehicle, the beginning of an unexpected alliance forming between human and alien, united by necessity and a shared sense of survival. Chapter 2. First Contact. Jack led the way back into the dimly lit interior of the Venturer, the heavy flux capacitor in tow. Lyra followed closely, her eyes scanning the familiar yet long uninhabited corridors with a hint of nostalgia. The ship had become her sanctuary, and sharing it now felt oddly intimate. "So, Lyra, you've been living off what, exactly?" Jack asked, breaking the silence as they navigated through a tangle of exposed wires and discarded panels. Lyra chuckled softly, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Scavenged parts, mostly. The hydroponics bay is still operational. I've managed to grow some food. That's impressive, Jack replied, setting down the heavy part with a grunt. Hydroponics isn't exactly beginner-friendly. Lyra shrugged, a fluid, graceful motion. Necessity is a great teacher. What about you? What brings you all the way out here for a spare part? Jack wiped his brow, leaning against a cool metal wall. The Orion is grounded without a new flux capacitor. I've been scavenging the belt for weeks. They reached the engine room, the heart of the old ship, where wires hung like vines in a forgotten jungle. Jack pointed to the console. Could use an extra hand here. Ever worked on a quantum drive before? Lyra's eyes lit up with interest. Only in theory. My people prefer different technologies. Well, today's your lucky day, Jack grinned, handing her a tool. You get to learn from a somewhat competent human mechanic. As they worked side by side, Jack explained the basics of the drive's mechanics, impressed by Lyra's quick grasp of human technology. The task gave them a chance to bridge their worlds, one tool at a time. You catch on fast, Jack noted, watching her deftly reconnect a series of intricate circuits. Lyra smiled, her fingers steady despite the complexity of the task. Thank you, Jack. It's fascinating to see how humans manage such raw, tangible technology. Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden spark from the console, followed by a low hum as the ship's systems began to awaken. Jack's eyes widened in surprise. Would you look at that? She's alive. You have quite the touch. Lyra looked equally pleased. It seems your ship likes me. They shared a laugh, the sound echoing slightly in the now buzzing engine room. Guess I owe you one, Jack said, a note of genuine gratitude in his voice. How about I give you a full tour of the ship? There might be more systems you could help bring back online. I'd like that, Lyra replied, her tone warm. As they moved through the ship, Jack pointed out the various modifications he'd made over the years, each one telling a story of distant worlds and close calls. Lyra listened intently, her curiosity about human spacefaring growing with every tale. When they reached the navigation deck, Jack paused, looking out at the star-studded blackness beyond the viewport. It's not much, but this old ship has been my home for a long time. Lyra joined him by the window, her gaze reflective. I understand. This ship has been my refuge, too, in a way. It's strange to think about leaving it. Jack nodded, his expression thoughtful. Maybe you don't have to leave. Once the Orion is fixed, there's plenty of space for both of us. The offer hung in the air between them, weighty and sincere. Lyra turned to him, a hint of surprise in her features. You mean that? I could come with you. Yeah, I mean it, Jack affirmed, his decision made in the moment but feeling right. Consider it a partnership. After all, you've already saved my mission today. Lyra's smile then was bright enough to light up the dim room. Partnership accepted, Jack. As they shook hands, an unspoken agreement was formed, not just of mutual assistance, but of a shared journey yet to come, their destinies intertwined by the ghostly corridors of an abandoned ship. Chapter 3. Understanding. The Venturer hummed with life, a stark contrast to the silent void outside its hull. Jack and Lyra moved through the corridors, their footsteps resonating against the metal floors as they headed towards the ship's communal area. It was a space Jack hadn't used in a long time, dust and memories covering the surfaces. So, this was the crew's gathering spot, Jack explained, sweeping his hand across the room, clearing away the layers of neglect. We used to share meals here, talk about our next destinations. It's been a while. Lyra listened intently, her eyes scanning the old photographs and trinkets that adorned the walls. It feels lived in. It's nice. She picked up a faded photo of Jack with his former crew, a group of hearty, smiling faces. Was it always just human crew? Yeah, until now, Jack chuckled, taking the photo to look at it himself. You're the first alien aboard. Guess that makes this a historic moment, huh? Lyra smiled, setting the photo back down gently. I suppose it does. Tell me more about them. Your crew. As they cleared the space together, Jack recounted tales of his old team, adventures they had navigating tricky trade routes and exploring uncharted sectors. Lyra, clearing a spot on a shelf, found an old navigational globe. What's this? She asked, holding it out curiously. That old thing. It's a 3D star map. Here, let me show you how it works. Jack took the globe, dusting it off, and activated it. A holographic map of nearby star systems and trade routes sprang to life, glowing softly in the dim light. Lyra's eyes widened in amazement. It's beautiful. The stars look so different when you see them laid out like this. They do, Jack agreed, pointing to a few key locations. And each one has its own story, its own atmosphere. The map sparked a deeper conversation about the different places they had each seen, the worlds Lyra had fled from, and the ones Jack had traded with. Each shared stories of their experiences, the difficulties of navigating not just space, but also the cultures and customs of different planets. Your experiences are so direct, so tactile, Lyra noted, her tone mixed with respect and a hint of envy. My people, we're more reserved, more about observing from afar. Jack nodded, understanding the sentiment. There's value in that, too. Sometimes I wish I could just watch instead of always being in the thick of it. They continued cleaning and organizing the room, their movements becoming more synchronized, a dance of two beings learning the rhythm of coexistence. As they worked, they set up a small food preparation area, and Jack retrieved some preserved meals from storage. Ever tried a human meal? He asked, opening a couple of packages. Lyra hesitated, her expression curious but cautious. No, I haven't. Well, today's your lucky day then. Hope you like rehydrated protein stew, Jack grinned, handing her a warmed package. Lyra took a tentative bite, her face scrunching slightly before smoothing into a polite smile. It's interesting. Jack laughed, clapping her on the back. Don't worry, you get used to it. Now, tell me more about your food. What's typical? As they ate, Lyra described her planet's cuisine, dishes that sounded like they were made from ingredients of light and shadow, complex and flavored with the essence of her world. Jack listened, fascinated, realizing how much he still had to learn about his new crewmate. By the time they finished their meal, the room was transformed. It no longer felt like a museum of Jack's past, but a shared space, a new chapter that was just beginning. Thanks for helping me clean this up, Jack said, looking around the room with a satisfied nod. Feels good to bring life back here. Lyra smiled, looking around at their handiwork. It does. And thank you, Jack, for making me feel at home. Their bond strengthened by each shared task and story, Jack and Lyra were no longer just shipmates. They were partners, each teaching the other about their very different yet increasingly intertwined worlds. Chapter 4. Growing Closer. As the days passed, the venturer felt less like a ship and more like a shared home. Jack and Lyra had established a comfortable routine, working side by side to restore the ship's various systems while sharing stories and insights from their vastly different cultures. One morning, while checking the status of the ship's life support systems, Jack noticed Lyra looking particularly thoughtful. "What's on your mind?" he asked, handing her a digital scanner. Lyra accepted the tool, her fingers brushing lightly against his. "I was just thinking about how much I've learned from you about human technology. It's much more hands-on than what I'm used to." Jack smiled, pleased by her interest. "Glad to hear you're picking it up so fast. How about you teach me something about your technology today? Maybe something from your world." Lyra's face lit up at the suggestion. "I would like that. There's actually a technique for energy conservation we use. It's quite efficient." "Perfect," Jack nodded. "Let's set up in the engineering bay after lunch. I'm eager to learn." They spent the morning performing maintenance, their conversation flowing easily. After they shared a meal, this time one of Lyra's nutrient-rich pastes, which Jack found surprisingly palatable, they moved to the engineering bay. Lyra began by explaining the principles of her people's energy conservation methods. She sketched diagrams on a digital pad, her explanations filled with terms Jack only half understood, but he was quick to catch on to the practical applications. "So, it's about maximizing output while minimizing waste," Jack summarized, trying to put it into terms he could fully grasp. "Exactly," Lyra confirmed, showing him the modifications needed to implement this technique on the Venturer. It could increase efficiency by up to 30%. Impressed, Jack gathered the necessary tools. "Let's give it a try." Working together, they modified the ship's energy converters according to Lyra's instructions. The task required precision and care, and Jack found himself admiring Lyra's expertise and steady hands. As they worked, their bodies moved in close coordination, and Jack was acutely aware of Lyra's presence beside him. There was a moment when their hands met accidentally over a component, and neither was quick to pull away. Feeling a bit bold, Jack held her gaze. "I'm really glad you're here, Lyra. I've learned a lot from you." Lyra's cheeks tinged with a color Jack had learned meant she was pleased or embarrassed. "And I, from you, Jack. I feel more alive than I have in a long time." Their eyes locked, and there was a charged silence, filled with unspoken words. Finally, Jack cleared his throat, turning back to their project. "We should test the new system." Lyra nodded, a slight smile still playing on her lips. "Yes, let's see if it works." They activated the modified converters, and the systems hummed to life, more smoothly than before. Success was evident in the readouts, but Jack felt a different kind of triumph in the air. As they cleaned up, Jack decided to take another step forward. "Lyra, would you join me tonight? I was thinking of watching a movie. It's a human thing. Films. I think you might like it." "I would love to," Lyra responded, her voice warm. "It sounds fascinating." That evening, they settled in front of the main screen in the communal area, a bowl of synthesized snacks between them. The film was an old Earth classic, and Jack explained the plot as it unfolded. Lyra was captivated, her eyes rarely straying from the screen, but Jack found himself watching her reactions just as much as the film. Her laughter, her gasps of surprise, the way her eyes shone under the flickering light of the screen, it all made Jack's heart beat a little faster. As the credits rolled, Lyra turned to him with a smile. "I see why humans enjoy this. It's a beautiful way to tell a story." "Yeah, it is," Jack agreed, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the ship's heating system. "And it's better with company." They sat in comfortable silence, the screen now dark, the only light coming from the stars outside. Jack felt a profound connection, not just to Lyra but to this moment, to the universe that had brought them together. It was a feeling he wanted to hold on to, a feeling he hoped would last. Chapter 5. A New Feeling. The next day brought a change to the dynamic between Jack and Lyra. After their movie night, there was an unspoken mutual understanding, a closer bond that subtly shifted their interactions. They found themselves sharing more laughs, and their conversations dipped into more personal territories, discussing dreams, fears, and aspirations. While recalibrating the navigation sensors in the control room, Jack decided to delve into a topic that had been on his mind. Lyra, have you ever thought about what you'll do once we're no longer just drifting through space? Any plans for when we reach a more populated sector? Lyra paused, her tool hovering above the sensor panel. I've thought about it, yes. It's strange, but despite my travels, I've rarely considered settling anywhere specific. Being with you here, now, it's the most grounded I've felt in a long time. That's good to hear, Jack said, meeting her gaze. Because, honestly, having you here has made this old ship feel a lot more like home. The moment felt charged, and Lyra stepped a bit closer, her usual shimmering aura seemingly brighter. Jack, The console beeped loudly, interrupting her. Jack chuckled, a bit embarrassed, and tapped the display to silence the alert. Sorry, go on. Lyra shook her head slightly, a small smile on her lips. I was just going to say, I feel the same. It's surprising how much impact one person can have on one's experience of the universe. Their tasks for the day continued, but now there was a palpable tension of another sort. Anticipation, curiosity, perhaps even something deeper. They moved through their duties with a new rhythm, their movements around each other smooth and almost intimate. Later, while inspecting the supply holds, Jack found a container of old earth wine, a rare find in the depths of space. Look what I've got, he announced, holding up the bottle with a triumphant grin. Lyra looked intrigued. What is it? It's wine, from Earth. It's meant to be shared, usually in good company and to celebrate special occasions. Jack waggled the bottle. What do you say? Care to partake in another human tradition with me? I would love to, Lyra responded, her voice tinged with excitement. That evening, they sat in the communal area, the same place where they had watched the movie. Jack popped the cork of the wine bottle, pouring the ruby liquid into 2 makeshift glasses. They clinked glasses, a sound crisp and clear in the quiet ship. To new experiences, Jack toasted. And to good company, Lyra added, smiling warmly. They sipped the wine, and Jack was amused by Lyra's puzzled expression as she tasted it. It's different, she said, complex. It grows on you, Jack assured her. As they drank, they talked about Earth and Lyra's homeworld, their cultures, their arts, their histories. As the bottle emptied, their conversation slowed, and they sat in a comfortable silence. Lyra then moved slightly closer to Jack, her hand accidentally brushing his. Instead of pulling away, she let it linger, her fingers tentatively intertwining with his. Jack looked at her, his heart pounding in his chest. He felt a pull, a desire to be closer. Slowly, he leaned in, and Lyra met him halfway, their lips touching in a tentative, gentle kiss. The kiss deepened, driven by the pent-up emotions and the connection they had been nurturing since her arrival. It was a discovery of another kind, exploring the feel and taste of each other, the warmth between them filling the cold space around them. When they finally pulled apart, there was a breathless quality to Lyra's voice. I've never, with a human before. Neither have I, Jack confessed, his voice low, with an alien. They both laughed softly, the sound mingling with the hum of the ship's engines. The kiss had changed something, opened a new chapter in their journey together, one not just of survival, but of companionship and perhaps something deeper still. We should probably get some rest, Jack suggested, though his eyes spoke of reluctance to end the night. Yes, rest, Lyra agreed, though her hand still held his. They stood together, neither moving to break the contact between them, the ship silent around them save for the distant hum of life support. This moment, simple yet profound, marked a turning point in their relationship, a step into uncharted territory that they both seemed eager to explore. Chapter 6. The Kiss. After their shared moment the previous evening, both Jack and Lyra found themselves navigating the new undercurrents of their relationship with an exciting, albeit slightly nervous, anticipation. The venturer felt smaller somehow, each glance and touch charged with an unspoken understanding. While they went about their daily tasks, Jack decided to bring up their shared kiss from the night before, needing to understand how Lyra felt about it. They were in the middle of recalibrating the ship's external sensors, a task that required them to work closely together in the cramped confines of the maintenance bay. About last night, Jack started, hesitating as he handed Lyra a sonic wrench. "I hope that was okay. I didn't mean to overstep." Lyra turned to him, her tool paused mid-adjustment. "Jack, I was glad it happened. I've been wondering about you, about us, since the first day we started working together like this." Relief washed over Jack, and he smiled. "Good, that's good. Because, honestly, I've been feeling the same way." The acknowledgment hung between them, a soft confirmation of mutual interest. They continued their work, but the atmosphere was lighter, filled with stolen glances and small smiles. Later, as they took a break in the ship's small mess area, Jack ventured further into uncharted territory. "Lyra, I've been thinking about us, about what this all might mean." He paused, searching her face for any signs of hesitation. Lyra nodded, her expression open and sincere. "I have too. It's strange and new, but it doesn't feel wrong, does it?" "No, it doesn't. It feels pretty right, actually," Jack admitted, then chuckled. "Never thought I'd find this kind of connection out here, in the middle of nowhere." "Nor did I," Lyra agreed, her hand reaching out to cover his. "I'm not familiar with human relationships, but I am willing to discover what it could be with you." Encouraged, Jack took her hand in his, feeling the warmth of her skin against his. "Let's figure it out together then." Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden alert from the ship's console. An incoming meteor shower was projected to pass dangerously close to their location. They sprung into action, their personal conversations shelved as they focused on the immediate threat. Working together with practiced efficiency, they adjusted the venturer's shields and plotted a course that would minimize impact. Their movements were fluid, a dance they had perfected over their time together, each step and turn anticipatory of the other's actions. Once the danger had passed, and the ship was secure, they shared a relieved sigh. Jack looked over at Lyra, her face illuminated by the glow of the console lights. "Seems we make a pretty good team," he joked, trying to ease the tension. "We do," Lyra responded, her voice soft. Then, with a decisive step, she closed the distance between them. This time, when they kissed, it was with a newfound confidence. There was no hesitation, only a deepening bond as they explored the nuances of each other's expressions of affection. Jack's hands found their way to her waist, pulling her closer, while Lyra's arms wrapped around his neck, her touch gentle yet eager. The kiss deepened, a mingling of breath and warmth in the cold expanse of space. They were explorers on a new frontier, not of stars and planets, but of the heart and soul. When they finally parted, it was only out of necessity, the need for oxygen a practical interruption to their otherwise perfect moment. "We should probably check the rest of the ship's systems," Jack said, a bit breathlessly. "Yes, we should," Lyra agreed, though her hand lingered in his. As they resumed their duties, the ship humming around them, their shared smiles were of two people who had discovered something rare and precious. The venturer wasn't just a ship anymore. It was a beginning of something extraordinary, a journey neither of them had expected, but both were eager to continue. Chapter 7. Riding the Waves of Pleasure. The days that followed deepened the bond between Jack and Lyra, transforming the venturer into a cocoon of shared discoveries and mutual exploration, not only of the ship and the vastness of space, but of each other's hearts and minds. One evening, as the ship drifted through a particularly serene expanse of the galaxy, Jack proposed an idea that had been forming in his mind, a way to further bridge their worlds. "Lyra, have you ever seen the Nebula Gardens? They're not far from here." Lyra looked intrigued. "I've heard of them, but I've never seen them. They say it's a sight that stays with you forever." "Then let's go," Jack said with a decisive nod. "It's a beautiful spot for making new memories." As they set course for the Nebula Gardens, the anticipation built between them. Once they arrived, the view from the observation deck was breathtaking. Clouds of vibrant gases twirled in cosmic dance, painting strokes of color against the black canvas of space. Lyra was captivated, her eyes wide with wonder. "It's beautiful, Jack. Thank you for bringing me here." Jack watched her, seeing the nebula reflected in her luminous eyes. "It's even better with you here," he admitted, his voice low. The emotion of the moment drew them together, standing side by side, gazing out at the celestial spectacle. Jack turned to Lyra, his hand finding hers, their fingers intertwining naturally. He could feel her pulse, fast and light against his own steady beat. Lyra turned to face him, her expression soft and open. "Jack, I—" He didn't let her finish. Gently pulling her closer, Jack kissed her, pouring all his feelings into the embrace. Lyra responded with equal passion, her hands exploring the contours of his back, pulling him closer. Their kiss deepened, and they found themselves moving toward his quarters, unwilling to part even for a moment. Inside, the dim lighting and the soft hum of the ship created an intimate ambience. They kissed again, more intensely this time, exploring each other with a growing urgency. Jack led her to the bed, their movements fluid and synchronized. As they lay down together, Lyra trembled slightly, a mix of anticipation and excitement. Jack was gentle but eager, his hands tracing the lines of her body, learning the texture and shape of her, different yet so familiar. Lyra's touch was exploratory, filled with a curiosity that only heightened their connection. She whispered his name, a sound that thrilled him to his core. As they moved together, the sensation was overwhelming, a rush of pleasure that was as much emotional as it was physical. Their love-making was a discovery of rhythm and harmony, an expression of their deepening bond. Lyra experienced human closeness in a way she had never imagined, her senses alight with new sensations and emotions. After, as they lay together, wrapped in each other's arms, Lyra nestled against Jack's chest. "I never knew it could be like this," she murmured, her voice a soft echo in the quiet of the room. "Me neither," Jack confessed, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her arm. "It feels right, doesn't it? Like we're meant to find each other, even out here among the stars." "Yes, it does," Lyra agreed, lifting her head to meet his gaze. "Jack, whatever happens next, I'm glad it's with you." Jack kissed her forehead, a gesture tender and full of promise. "Me too, Lyra. No matter where we go from here, we go together." As they drifted off to sleep, the Venturer continued its silent voyage through space, a vessel not just of exploration but of connection, carrying two souls who had found each other across the vastness of the universe, their journey intertwined by fate and choice alike. Chapter 8. A Future Together. In the soft glow of the Venturer's Dawn simulator, Jack and Lyra sat side by side at the navigation console, plotting their next course. The ship had become more than a vessel. It was their shared home, a place of their union and understanding, pulsating with the life of their intertwined spirits. "So, where to next?" Jack asked, his voice tinged with both excitement and a hint of solemnity. The universe lay open before them, a canvas waiting for their strokes. Lyra looked over the star charts, her finger tracing lines between systems and sectors. "I heard about a place called the Crystal Reefs of Vaughn, supposed to be spectacular. What do you think?" Jack's eyes lit up at the mention. "The reefs? I've only seen pictures. They say you can hear the crystals sing with the tide of the nebula. Let's do it." Their hands met on the console, fingers interlocking naturally. Jack entered the coordinates, and the venturer hummed in response, ready as always to carry them to their next adventure. As the ship made its preparations, Jack turned to Lyra with a contemplative look. "Lyra, we've been through a lot together. These past weeks. They've changed me." Lyra smiled, her hand squeezing his. "Me too, Jack. I've found something with you I didn't even know I was looking for." Jack nodded, his decision clear. "Whatever we find out there, whatever we face, I want to face it with you. This partnership. It's the best thing that's happened to me out here. Or anywhere," Lyra added softly, her voice full of emotion. Jack chuckled, a sound of pure joy. "Or anywhere. So, partner, are you ready to see where this journey takes us?" "Always," Lyra affirmed, her tone resolute. With their course set, Jack and Lyra left the navigation deck, their steps leading them to the observation lounge. Outside the large viewport, stars streaked by as the ship sped on its new heading. They stood together, watching the light show, the universe itself seeming to celebrate their decision. Jack wrapped an arm around Lyra, drawing her close. "You know, when I found you on this ship, I never imagined this would be our future." Lyra rested her head against his shoulder. "Neither did I. It's strange how life unfolds. The day you came looking for a spare part." She laughed softly, the sound resonant with happiness. Jack joined in her laughter, the memory bittersweet yet cherished. "Yeah, the alien girl who was living in my abandoned ship and panicked when I came for a spare part. Sounds like the start of a joke, doesn't it?" "Or a great story," Lyra countered, her eyes twinkling. "A great story," Jack agreed, kissing her temple. They stood in silence for a moment, each lost in thoughts of the past and dreams of the future. The ship sailed onward, its course true, its occupants content. Finally Jack spoke, his words a whisper carried on the quiet of space. "No matter where we go, Lyra, I'm glad you're with me. That you're my partner. It's not the stars, not the adventures. It's you." Lyra turned to face him, her eyes moist with unshed tears of joy. "And you, Jack. You're my home." The venturer continued its journey through the cosmos, its path illuminated by nebulae and starlight, its way forward marked by the love and commitment of two souls from different worlds. They had found their place in the universe, not just beside each other, but with each other, their futures as boundless as the stars themselves.